In the opulent halls of the Luftwaffe headquarters, Hermann Göring leaned back, a sardonic smile curling across his face as he listened to intelligence reports of America's ambitious plan to build 50,000 warplanes. The sheer audacity of the idea seemed laughable to him, almost comical, in contrast to the meticulously engineered German air fleet. He had seen Europe engulfed by the Blitzkrieg, the Luftwaffe's supremacy undisputed, and he assumed that industrial ambition alone could never rival the precision, discipline, and efficiency of German engineering. Yet beneath the mirth and scorn lay the seeds of underestimation, a fatal flaw that would soon prove catastrophic. The American plan, which he dismissed as impractical, would not merely meet expectations, it would double them, reaching an astonishing 100,000 planes, overwhelming the Luftwaffe in a logistical and strategic storm that no amount of German arrogance could contain. The U.S. aviation industry, fueled by ingenuity, determination, and unprecedented mobilization, began constructing planes at a pace that defied even the most optimistic forecasts. Massive factories rose across the Midwest, rivers of steel and aluminum flowing into assembly lines where thousands of workers, men and women alike, transformed raw materials into instruments of war. Engineers, designers, and assembly teams collaborated with near-obsessive precision, refining production processes, streamlining logistics, and implementing revolutionary assembly techniques. From the first sketch to the completed warplane, each stage was executed with an efficiency that even the Luftwaffe could not anticipate. It was not just industrial might. It was a testament to American organizational ingenuity and an almost industrial-scale choreography of men, machines, and materials. Göring's laughter, emblematic of his hubris, belied a fundamental misunderstanding of American culture, work ethic, and innovation. While Germany relied on precision and elite craftsmanship, the U.S. leveraged scale, redundancy, and relentless efficiency, producing planes in numbers that shattered traditional constraints. Factories operated around the clock, with shifts staggered to ensure continuous output. Raw materials were transported via newly developed logistical networks, often spanning thousands of miles, while workers became adept at rapid assembly without compromising structural integrity. The American approach combined quantity with quality, ensuring that each plane was battle-ready, reliable, and capable of sustaining prolonged air campaigns across multiple theaters. Meanwhile, the Luftwaffe, though technically superior in individual aircraft performance, faced an insidious problem: attrition. Each mission, each engagement, each loss compounded the challenge of replacing planes at the pace required to maintain air superiority. The Americans, by contrast, produced replacements faster than losses could accumulate, creating a scenario in which the Germans were constantly playing catch-up. Göring's dismissive attitude, rooted in overconfidence and a failure to appreciate American industrial resilience, set the stage for a strategic imbalance. The laughter that echoed in Luftwaffe headquarters became a symbol of misjudgment, a foreshadowing of the immense logistical and operational advantage America would wield in the skies over Europe and the Pacific. The American workforce, drawn from every corner of the nation, approached production with a sense of purpose and patriotism that transcended mere employment. Women replaced men who had gone to fight, often learning complex assembly techniques overnight, while men adapted to industrial roles requiring precision, speed, and endurance. Each completed aircraft represented not just steel and engineering, but the collective determination of a nation mobilized for total war. Assembly lines became temples of industrial devotion, humming with synchronized machinery and human effort, turning raw metals into lethal vectors of air power. The scale was staggering. Tens of thousands of planes constructed in months, a feat that Göring had mocked as impossible, now becoming a crushing reality. Göring's initial reaction, mockery and disbelief, also reflected the broader Nazi strategic mindset, an assumption that technological sophistication and elite planning could outweigh sheer production capacity. Yet the American example demonstrated the opposite, that scale, organization, and relentless execution could outmatch even the most technologically advanced force. By the time the first massive squadrons reached operational readiness, the Luftwaffe confronted an enemy not only unbowed but growing exponentially stronger in numbers. Skies that had once been dominated by German fighters now faced a relentless tide of American bombers and fighters, each plane representing not just a machine, but a testament to industrial determination and national will. The early stages of the American buildup were accompanied by meticulous planning. Strategic placement of factories, transportation hubs, and resource depots ensured that aircraft production could scale rapidly without interruption. Engineers continually refined designs to simplify assembly, reduce material waste, and improve reliability. Innovations such as modular assembly, prefabrication of key components, and standardized parts allowed workers to produce planes faster than ever imagined. Each factory became a microcosm of efficiency, producing hundreds of planes per month, all destined to overwhelm enemy defenses. Göring's ridicule, confident in its superiority, failed to account for the synergistic effects of American industrial strategy, national mobilization, and engineering ingenuity. By the time the first waves of American planes entered combat, the Luftwaffe faced a stark reality. What had been dismissed as a fanciful dream, 50,000 aircraft, was surpassed beyond comprehension, with 100,000 planes on order and rolling off assembly lines. The German response, caught between disbelief and desperation, could not match the scale or speed of American production. Each engagement increasingly favored the Allies, as losses were replaced with unyielding regularity, while German attrition mounted unsustainably. Göring's laughter, once echoing through command chambers, had become a bitter memory, a symbol of hubris undone by industrial might. The air war had irrevocably shifted, demonstrating that in modern warfare, production, logistics, and organization could determine victory as decisively as tactics or technology. The mockery, the arrogance, and the foreshadowing of American industrial triumph. The final minute concludes with tension and awe. Göring's disbelief transformed into strategic disadvantage, the sheer scale of production overwhelming the Luftwaffe, and the stage set for air dominance that would reshape the course of World War II. Every plane, every assembly line, every worker contributed to a crescendo of capability that no single nation had faced before, ensuring that the skies would belong to America, and that mocking laughter would be replaced with the harsh reality of relentless, unstoppable air power. As Göring's laughter faded into disbelief, the true power behind the American war effort began to reveal itself, the relentless efficiency of U.S. aircraft production. Massive factories sprang up across the country, stretching from the industrial heartlands of Detroit and Chicago to remote river valleys converted into aeronautical production hubs. Each factory functioned as a well-oiled machine, a fusion of human ingenuity, mechanical precision, and logistical mastery. Thousands of workers moved in synchronized shifts, assembling parts with meticulous care, welding, riveting, and testing each component to ensure that the aircraft emerging from the lines were battle-ready. The scale was unprecedented. Assembly lines churned out hundreds of planes per week, a feat that Germany's elite engineers had deemed impossible. Inside these sprawling factories, innovation became routine. Engineers refined designs to allow for modular assembly, prefabrication of critical components, and standardized parts that could be installed by workers of varying skill levels. Machines and men worked in harmony. Conveyor belts, cranes, and tools orchestrated an industrial ballet where raw steel, aluminum, and electronics were transformed into lethal war machines. Workers, both men and women, became integral cogs in this system, learning complex assembly tasks rapidly and executing them with precision. Each completed aircraft represented not just engineering prowess, but a monumental testament to national mobilization, dedication, and ingenuity. Meanwhile, American leadership understood that speed and scale were as vital as innovation. Resources were directed toward the most productive factories, supply chains optimized to ensure constant delivery of materials, and transportation networks redesigned to handle unprecedented loads of steel, aluminum, and aviation components. Even as bombers and fighters rolled off assembly lines, new models were being conceptualized and tested, ensuring continuous improvement and adaptability. Göring's assumption that quantity could never match German quality proved catastrophically wrong. America's approach blended speed with reliability, ensuring that each aircraft could endure rigorous combat conditions while being produced at an unprecedented rate. The impact on the Luftwaffe was immediate and shocking. German intelligence, initially skeptical of American claims, began to recognize the scale of the industrial tide rolling across the Atlantic. The 50,000 plane plan, once mocked, was now eclipsed, with production scaling toward 100,000 aircraft. Commanders realized that even as they destroyed one wave of planes, another was ready to take its place. The advantage of attrition, which had favored Germany in previous campaigns, was inverted. The Americans could outproduce losses, sustain prolonged air operations, and apply constant pressure across multiple theaters. Göring's confidence eroded as the implications became undeniable. The skies would no longer belong to the Luftwaffe. Workers on the assembly lines were aware of the stakes but often lacked full understanding of the strategic significance. Each rivet, panel, and propeller they installed was part of a vast and interconnected network of war effort. Women, who had entered factories in unprecedented numbers, learned to operate complex machinery and assemble critical components with precision and speed, filling the void left by men who had gone to fight overseas. Men adapted to industrial roles requiring both endurance and meticulous skill, working long hours in challenging conditions to meet production quotas. Together, these efforts created a system capable of sustaining a level of output that no enemy had faced before, and certainly not one still relying on elite craftsmanship rather than mass production. The factories themselves became symbols of American resolve. Massive buildings hummed with machinery, cranes lifted tons of material, and conveyor belts transported assemblies from one stage to another with rhythmic precision. Supervisors coordinated shifts, monitored quality, and ensured that every completed aircraft met rigorous standards. Innovations in logistics, such as pre-staged parts, optimized material flows, and modular assembly lines, allowed these factories to achieve levels of production that were previously unimaginable. While Göring relied on technical superiority and precision engineering, America leveraged scale, coordination, and relentless efficiency, proving that industrial might could redefine air warfare. The narrative underscores the transformative impact of America's industrial miracle. The first minute hooks viewers with suspense, the contrast between Göring's disbelief and the rising reality of mass production. The last minute emphasizes awe, an unstoppable industrial force turning raw materials and human effort into a fleet capable of overwhelming the Luftwaffe, ensuring that what had been mocked as impossible became the decisive factor in air dominance. Each plane leaving the line symbolized not only war power but the ingenuity, dedication, and relentless execution of a nation mobilized for victory. Behind the roaring assembly lines and towering factories were the unsung heroes, the engineers, designers, and planners who transformed America's ambition into reality. These men and women worked tirelessly to devise solutions that enabled mass production without compromising quality. Faced with the daunting task of producing tens of thousands of aircraft, they innovated at every level, from aerodynamics and structural integrity to assembly techniques and quality control. Their work was a delicate balance between speed and precision, ensuring that each plane could withstand the rigors of combat while being produced, at a pace that stunned even seasoned observers. These engineers pioneered modular construction, methods that allowed components to be manufactured simultaneously in different locations and later assembled into complete aircraft. Wings, fuselages, engines, and control surfaces were standardized, tested individually, and then integrated seamlessly. This modular approach not only accelerated production, but also simplified repairs and maintenance in the field, allowing American forces to keep their planes operational longer than the Luftwaffe could manage. It was a strategic innovation as much as an industrial one. Speed, resilience, and adaptability became weapons in their own right. Collaboration and communication were at the heart of this engineering revolution. Designers worked closely with assembly line managers, sharing feedback from workers and pilots alike to refine aircraft performance and ease production bottlenecks. Rapid prototyping became standard, with engineers testing new ideas and immediately implementing improvements. Problems that might have stalled traditional production were solved in hours, sometimes minutes, demonstrating the unprecedented agility of the American war effort. While Göring relied on existing expertise and elite units, American engineers embraced experimentation and rapid iteration, proving that innovation could scale alongside production. The human element was just as critical as technological innovation. Engineers often worked side by side with assembly line workers, understanding the practical challenges of installation, handling, and adjustment. This close cooperation ensured that design decisions were grounded in real-world feasibility, reducing errors and inefficiencies that could slow production. Each improvement, each streamlined process, compounded across thousands of aircraft, yielding exponential gains in output. The scale of this collaborative ingenuity was unprecedented, producing a fleet that was not only large but exceptionally capable. Strategically, these engineering feats shifted the balance of power in the air. As American planes rolled off assembly lines in staggering numbers, the Luftwaffe's technological superiority was increasingly irrelevant. The Germans faced relentless waves of aircraft, each representing months of labor, design, and logistical planning. No matter how skilled a pilot or advanced a plane, the sheer quantity produced by America's integrated industrial and engineering apparatus overwhelmed German defenses. Göring's earlier dismissive laughter now seemed tragically misplaced, a misjudgment of the synergy between American ingenuity and industrial capacity. The engineer's influence extended beyond production. Innovations in engine design, aerodynamics, and materials science increased performance, reliability, and operational range. Each plane reflected the combined expertise of countless specialists, ensuring that American air forces could strike farther, faster, and more efficiently than anticipated. Training programs integrated these technological advancements, allowing pilots to maximize the potential of their aircraft while minimizing losses. The cumulative effect was a fleet that was not merely large, but operationally superior in terms of endurance, resilience, and adaptability. Capabilities that outstripped German expectations and shattered prior assumptions about industrial warfare. The challenge that seemed insurmountable, the stakes of producing tens of thousands of planes. The last minute builds all, engineers turning ambition into tangible power, creating a fleet that would dominate the skies, outproduce the enemy, and prove that innovation at scale could change the course of war. Every rivet, calculation, and design improvement becomes part of a narrative that elevates industrial genius to the level of battlefield dominance. While Göring and the Luftwaffe focused on elite pilots and precision engineering, the true backbone of America's aviation triumph lay in the hands of its workers. Men and women, drawn from every corner of the nation, transformed factories into engines of war. The sheer scale of their effort was staggering. Tens of thousands of personnel operating around the clock, performing tasks that required both skill and endurance. Women, who had previously been excluded from heavy industry, mastered welding, riveting, and machinery operation with astonishing speed, stepping into roles traditionally held by men who had gone overseas to fight. This influx of labor allowed production lines to operate continuously, maximizing output while maintaining high standards of quality. The workforce was not just large, it was highly adaptable and innovative. Employees learned to identify bottlenecks, streamline assembly processes, and even suggest improvements to machinery and workflow. Supervisors encouraged this collaborative approach, recognizing that empowering workers to problem-solve would increase efficiency. This culture of collective ingenuity created a feedback loop. The faster workers adapted, the faster planes rolled off the lines, which in turn increased morale and national pride. Every completed aircraft became a symbol of the workforce's dedication and skill, a tangible representation of America's capacity to mobilize for total war. Training programs were accelerated and specialized. Workers who had never seen a factory machine or aircraft component were quickly brought up to speed, often mastering complex tasks in days rather than months. Women learned to operate cranes, assemble engines, and test electrical systems. Men adapted to new industrial roles, coordinating logistics and overseeing quality control. Each worker became a crucial link in the chain of production, and the combined effort created a pace of output that even the most skeptical observers would describe as miraculous. Göring's disbelief grew as intelligence reports confirmed that the American production machine was exceeding even its own ambitious targets, moving steadily toward 100,000 aircraft. Morale played a key role in sustaining this workforce. Propaganda, patriotic duty, and a sense of collective purpose drove workers to extraordinary feats of endurance. Overtime shifts, sometimes 12 hours a day, were common, yet employees remained focused on the goal, ensuring that American air forces would dominate the skies. Community support, social programs, and national campaigns emphasized the critical role each worker played in the war effort. Factories became microcosms of national unity, where every rivet, panel, and instrument carried significance far beyond its physical purpose. The organizational structure of the workforce further enhanced efficiency. Teams were arranged to optimize workflow, materials were pre-staged to minimize delays, and assembly lines were meticulously timed to ensure continuous movement of components. Engineering staff and assembly personnel collaborated closely, ensuring that any production challenges were addressed immediately. Even minor improvements in workflow could translate into hundreds of additional aircraft completed per month, magnifying the strategic impact of each innovation. Strategically, the workforce's effort meant that the Luftwaffe's superior individual aircraft could be met with overwhelming numbers. For every plane destroyed in combat, multiple replacements were ready, sustaining operations and outpacing attrition. Göring's reliance on elite skill and craftsmanship was rendered moot against the relentless output of a mobilized nation. The workforce became the unseen weapon of American air power, invisible in its individual contributions, but monumental in its cumulative effect. Turning industrial labor into a decisive military advantage, the seemingly impossible mobilization of a national workforce. The last minute concludes with overwhelming impact. Tens of thousands of workers operating in perfect coordination, producing aircraft that would dominate the skies and render German mockery meaningless. The narrative elevates ordinary individuals to heroes whose collective effort reshaped the course of history, proving that human ingenuity and perseverance could rival technology and tactics in modern warfare. While factories churned out aircraft and workers executed their roles with precision, the true genius of America's air power lay in the orchestration of logistics and strategy that connected production to the front lines. Every rivet installed in a factory, every engine tested, and every fuselage assembled was only part of the equation. Transporting these planes, delivering parts, fuel, and munitions to operational units required a level of planning that rivaled battlefield tactics. Roads, railways, ports, and airfields became lifelines, allowing the U.S. to deploy and sustain massive fleets across multiple theaters simultaneously. Göring's disbelief intensified as reports trickled in of American planes arriving at front lines faster than German intelligence could track, often overwhelming Luftwaffe defenses before countermeasures could be enacted. Coordination between production and deployment was a masterpiece of planning. Aircraft were disassembled for transport when necessary, shipped across oceans in crated form, and reassembled at strategic airfields near combat zones. Engineers and logistics officers worked tirelessly to ensure that each component arrived on time and in perfect condition. Fuel, munitions, spare parts, and personnel were synchronized to the precise needs of operational units, allowing squadrons to remain active and combat-ready without interruption. This efficiency created a strategic advantage that Göring had not anticipated. Planes were not only produced in unprecedented numbers, but deployed in a manner that multiplied their effectiveness far beyond mere quantity, the ability to replace losses rapidly and maintain continuous operations rendered traditional attrition strategies ineffective. The Luftwaffe could destroy aircraft in combat, but American logistics ensured that replacements were available almost immediately. Entire campaigns that relied on wearing down enemy air forces now faced a foe that could regenerate its capabilities faster than they could be diminished. The German focus on technical superiority became increasingly irrelevant in the face of a force sustained by precision logistics and relentless output. The psychological impact of seeing waves of replacement planes arriving seemingly endlessly demoralized pilots and commanders alike, compounding the tactical challenges faced by the Luftwaffe. Strategic planning extended beyond simple replacement. Operations were designed to maximize the impact of each aircraft, coordinating bombing runs, fighter escorts, reconnaissance, and supply drops in seamless sequences. Commanders leveraged intelligence to identify weak points, optimize sortie patterns, and synchronize attacks with Allied ground operations. The synergy between production, logistics, and strategy created a force that was greater than the sum of its parts, enabling the U.S. to project power across vast distances while maintaining operational superiority. Each aircraft became part of a living, adaptive system capable of responding to changing battlefield conditions with unmatched efficiency. The American approach also emphasized redundancy and resilience. Multiple supply routes ensured that the destruction of one port or airfield would not halt operations. Contingency plans allowed for rapid adaptation to unexpected challenges. Maintenance crews were trained to perform complex repairs under field conditions, often restoring damaged planes to combat readiness faster than the Luftwaffe could replace losses. These measures transformed logistical planning into a form of warfare itself, striking at the heart of German assumptions about vulnerability and control. Göring's mockery had not accounted for the intelligence, foresight, and adaptability embedded in the American war machine. Moreover, coordination extended to international alliances. Lend-lease agreements, shared intelligence, and joint operations with Allied forces multiplied the effectiveness of U.S. production and logistics. Aircraft, equipment, and materials flowed not only to American units, but to British, Canadian, and other Allied forces, creating a unified aerial front that further strained German capabilities. The combination of production, logistics, and cooperative strategy created a multi-layered offensive that Göring's forces were ill-equipped to counter. Each layer reinforced the other, producing a force that was simultaneously vast, agile, and strategically precise. The daunting challenge of sustaining unprecedented production across oceans and continents. The last minute concludes with awe, logistics and strategy transforming raw industrial output into unstoppable air power, ensuring that American planes dominated the skies and rendering German mockery meaningless. The narrative emphasizes that warfare is not merely about weapons or pilots, but about the invisible systems, planning, coordination, and execution that turn ambition into victory. As the war reached its peak, the full scope of America's aerial achievement became undeniable. Hermann Göring's laughter, once echoing through the halls of the Luftwaffe, had long since vanished, replaced by disbelief and desperation. The plan he had mocked, a supposed impossibility of producing 50,000 aircraft, was not only achieved but doubled, reaching 100,000 planes that rolled off assembly lines with staggering efficiency. Each aircraft was more than metal and machinery. It was a manifestation of American ingenuity, industrial power, and the collective will of an entire nation united for victory. The skies over Europe, once dominated by the Luftwaffe's elite fighters, now faced a relentless wave of American bombers, fighters, and reconnaissance planes that seemed endless in both number and reach. Factories, assembly lines, and logistics networks had functioned as a single, unstoppable organism, turning raw materials into instruments of air dominance. Engineers, designers, and planners coordinated seamlessly with workers, production managers, and military strategists, creating a feedback loop of innovation and output. Every improvement in design, assembly, or deployment multiplied the effectiveness of the entire fleet. Meanwhile, pilots trained on these aircraft, confident in the reliability and performance of their planes, executed missions with precision, striking German targets with devastating efficiency. Göring's reliance on technological superiority and elite skill could not match the synergy of American scale, strategy, and relentless production. The impact on the Luftwaffe was catastrophic. Entire squadrons faced waves of aircraft they could neither outproduce nor outmaneuver. Attrition, previously a manageable challenge, became a crippling problem. Every German loss was replaced multiple times over, each new plane arriving faster than any countermeasure could be deployed. Morale faltered as German pilots and commanders confronted the reality of endless adversaries in the skies. Göring's hubris, the laughter that had mocked American ambition, had blinded him to a fundamental principle of modern warfare. That scale, coordination, and national resolve could outweigh even technical and tactical superiority. The psychological dimension of this triumph cannot be overstated. For Americans, each completed plane represented not just industrial success, but the tangible power of a nation united behind a common cause. For Germans, every new wave of aircraft reinforced a sense of helplessness and inevitability. The vast numbers, combined with reliable performance and strategic deployment, created an air force that was simultaneously overwhelming, adaptable, and unstoppable. Skies that had once symbolized German dominance now testified to American ingenuity, perseverance, and the extraordinary capacity of a mobilized nation. In the final minutes of this narrative, the full weight of the achievement is revealed. The first minute hooks with suspense. Göring's mockery, the audacity of the plan, and the early signs of industrial power that seemed impossible to overcome. The last minute delivers awe and resolution. 100,000 aircraft dominating the skies. German forces in retreat, and the American war machine proving that ambition, innovation, and relentless execution could reshape history. The skies themselves became a symbol of triumph, each plane a testament to the power of collective effort, industrial genius, and unwavering national will. America's achievement in aircraft production did more than supply machines for war. It demonstrated the decisive impact of industrial mobilization, strategic planning, and human ingenuity. Göring's laughter had been replaced by stunned recognition. The enemy he had mocked had harnessed the full potential of a nation, turning ambition into reality and ensuring that the air war would forever bear the mark of American innovation. By the end of the Battle of the Atlantic, the European theater, and indeed the world, had witnessed a lesson in the supremacy of scale, coordination, and relentless execution. The 100,000 planes, the factories, the engineers, the workers, and the pilots together forged a force that Göring could never have imagined, and a legacy that would define modern warfare for generations to come.